There are moments in life when silence says more than 1,000 words. That Tuesday evening was one of them. Emily stood in our kitchen, 8 months pregnant, glowing, but it wasn't the glow of motherhood. No, this was different. It was subtle, intimate. A smile crept across her lips as she stared at her phone. The kind of smile a woman gives when she feels seen, wanted. I watched from the hallway, unseen, my keys clenched tightly in my hand. Her fingers flew across the screen, texting back with a kind of eagerness I hadn't seen in a long time. I'd chalked it up to hormones or nesting, the usual things, but something gnawed at my insides now, like a whisper I couldn't quite hear but could feel. That night, she fell asleep quickly. I didn't. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every missed cue, every shift in tone, every time she'd worked late over the past 2 months. She worked in human resources at a mid-sized tech company, and ever since their new director, Dylan Kerr, came on board, she'd been talking about him more. At first, it was professional. Praise for how he was restructuring the company, fixing chaos. But then it got personal. "He's actually pretty funny," she once said. "You'd like him." I never did meet him. Chapter 2. Whispers Between. Cubicle's I didn't want to become that husband, the paranoid, suspicious type. But doubt has a way of breeding quietly in the background until it's too loud to ignore. I took the next day off work under the pretense of a personal emergency, then drove to her office building. I parked across the street and waited. 3 hours later, I saw her. She wasn't alone. Dylan Kerr was tall, confident, and had the kind of smile that disarmed. He walked beside her, holding a cup of coffee like it was part of his identity. They laughed. Too close, too comfortable. He touched her elbow lightly and she didn't flinch. In fact, she leaned in. That was when I knew, or at least thought I did. Chapter 3. An offer from the shadows, I didn't know where to start. Confrontation would only push her away, and I wasn't ready for lies. I needed truth. I found it in a place I never expected. Vera. She was a quiet woman, worked as a receptionist in Emily's building. I recognized her from the holiday party 2 years ago. I approached her gently one afternoon, explained that I was concerned about Emily's well-being and that she seemed stressed. I didn't mention the affair. Vera looked around and lowered her voice. "People talk," she said. "And Dylan Kerr? He's not new to this kind of thing. Rumor is this isn't the first time he's gotten close to someone married." She paused. "I don't know if your wife's involved, but people see things." I left with a business card she slipped into my hand. Malik Rhodes, private investigator. Discreet, thorough. Chapter 4. The photographs. 2 weeks later, Malik handed me a file across a dimly lit diner booth. "You sure you want to see this?" he asked. I opened it. Inside were photos. Dylan and Emily walking arm in arm, laughing over lunch, him holding her coat as she adjusted her blouse. There was one where his hand rested on her belly, her expression unreadable. Part affection, part hesitation. But the one that hit me hardest wasn't even the most damning. It was a selfie, taken in his office. Her smile wide, his chin resting lightly against her head. Her wedding ring visible on her finger, almost mocking. Chapter 5. The confrontation. That night, I waited. When she came home, I was in the kitchen, file open on the table. She froze. "What is this?" she asked, voice shaking. "You tell me." Tears welled in her eyes. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" I whispered. "Because it looks like the man you work with is far more involved than any co-worker should be, with you and our child." She sat. "We got close, emotionally. Dylan was there when I had the miscarriage scare. You were away for work. I didn't mean for it to happen, but we never slept together. I swear." Is the baby mine? A silence thick as molasses hung between us. Yes, she said, but you don't believe me. Chapter 6. Truth in the blood I didn't, so I waited. I stayed by her side through the rest of the pregnancy, through gritted teeth and broken trust. When our daughter Lila was born, I wept holding her. But the next day, I took a swab from her cheek while Emily slept. 2 weeks later, I opened an envelope with trembling hands. 9% match. I was the father. I broke down on the bathroom floor. Chapter 7. The final twist. Just when I thought the story was over, when I was ready to rebuild, try therapy, give our daughter a family, Malik called me again. You might want to see this, he said. Turns out Dylan's been under investigation. Embezzlement. And your wife? She's not entirely uninvolved. What the hell are you talking about? Check your joint account, the transfer 6 weeks ago. $50,000. It didn't go to the mortgage lender. It went to a shell company. Traced back to Dylan. Emily walked through the front door as I hung up. You stole from me, I said. Her face paled. No. I was trying to help him. He said he'd pay it back. He was in trouble. You had an affair and you laundered money for him. I didn't know it was laundering. Save it, I snapped. I'm pressing charges. Epilogue. A new chapter. Emily was arrested for financial conspiracy. She pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for information about Dylan, who vanished with over $2 million in stolen funds. Last I heard, he was hiding somewhere in South America. Interpol is still looking. As for me, Lila's laughter keeps me sane. I got full custody after the divorce. Some nights I still wonder what part of Emily was real and what was an illusion. But the truth? Sometimes, even when you win, the battlefield still smells like smoke and ash. And in that haunting quiet, you learn how to start again. 6 months after the trial, my house was finally quiet again. The walls no longer echoed with shouting, accusations, or Emily's tearful apologies. Just the soft coos of Lila in the morning, the gentle hum of the bottle warmer, and the shuffle of baby socks on hardwood. But silence, I've learned, doesn't always mean peace. Emily was sentenced to 18 months at a minimum security facility. The judge showed mercy for the sake of her maternal bond. But I was granted full custody, with only supervised visitation once she got out. The moment the gavel dropped, she crumbled like paper. And still, something didn't sit right. Because if Dylan had run with millions and Emily only helped with 50,000, what happened to the rest of it? And why, according to Malik, did Emily receive another encrypted message just 3 days before her arrest? Chapter 9. The necklace. It was a Tuesday when I found it. I was organizing some of Emily's old belongings, packing them for storage, or destruction. I hadn't yet decided when I discovered a black velvet jewelry box tucked inside a maternity coat pocket. Inside was a silver locket I'd never seen before. It clicked open with a quiet snap, revealing a tiny photo of Lila on one side. On the other, a small micro SD card, almost invisible to the eye. A card no woman in love or even scared accidentally hides. I plugged it into my laptop that night. There were files, dozens of them, emails, wire transfers, private memos between Dylan and a list of names, executives, clients, investors. Emily was the conduit. Dylan wasn't just stealing money, he was running a network, a high-level corporate leak farm. He sold confidential company data to competitors. And Emily? She was the delivery girl. Whether she did it for love or out of fear, I no longer cared. What I cared about was that Emily knew he wasn't gone. One of the last emails, dated just a week before her arrest, said, "The plan worked. Burn the rest. Keep Lila safe. I'll find a way back." DK Chapter 10. The Watcher. I gave the card to Malik. He wanted to send it to the FBI, but we agreed. First, we dig deeper. "Someone's been watching your house," he said one night. A man, tall, drives a black SUV, parks down the street. Around midnight. Same one that followed me after I left Emily's old workplace. My heart dropped. Dylan? Or someone who works for him? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights off, baby monitor on the table, gun in my lap. Every shadow outside the window felt alive. At 12:43 a.m., the SUV rolled by. It didn't stop, but the message was clear. We see you. Chapter 11. A Mother's Leverage. Emily called from prison. Her voice was different, calmer, steelier. "I need to see you," she said. "Alone." "Why?" I asked coldly. "Because you think I'm the villain in your story. But I was protecting our daughter. And I have something you need." I didn't want to go. But I did. Behind the glass, Emily looked hollow. Her face was thinner, hair duller, but her eyes sharp. "Dylan's coming back," she said. "He'll try to use Lila to get to me, or you, because he thinks I kept something from him. And I did." "What?" She leaned closer. "There's another card, the real one. I didn't burn it like he told me. He thinks I did, and now he's dangerous. More than you know." "Where is it?" She smiled for the first time in months. "A trade. I want out. I give you the card. You help me get house arrest. My lawyer's working on an appeal. Use your influence." "Why the hell would I help? You?" Her voice dropped. "Because if you don't, he'll take Lila, and you won't be able to stop him." Chapter 12. The decoy. I didn't trust her. But I played along. With Malik's help, I staged a false negotiation with Emily's lawyer. Just enough noise to make Dylan, or whoever was watching, believe she might be released soon. It worked. 2 nights later, my doorbell rang. No one was there, but taped to the glass was a flash drive and a single photo of Lila taken from outside her daycare. The message attached was short. "Tell Emily we still have an agreement. Or next time, I don't miss." Chapter 13. The turn. Malik and I made a decision. We went to the FBI, not just with the new threat, but everything. The SD card, the locket, the flash drive, the list of names involved in Dylan's operation. The FBI confirmed what we feared. Dylan. Kerr was now tied to international corporate espionage and possibly foreign interests. He was no longer a fugitive. He was a priority. Emily was transferred into federal custody for her own protection. She hated me for it, but I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because Lila deserves one parent not in handcuffs. It's been 4 months since Dylan's last message. Emily is now in witness protection, likely under another name. I haven't heard from her since. Lila's first birthday is next week. She's starting to walk. Her giggle fills the house again. I've moved twice since the last threat. There are cameras on every door and window. It started with a dream. Emily, standing in the middle of a burning office, flames licking the walls. She was holding Lila, but the baby wouldn't stop crying. I reached out to help, and Emily smiled. A strange, foreign smile. Then a voice behind me whispered, "You should have let her burn with me." I woke up drenched in sweat. But what shook me wasn't the dream. It was the small thumb drive on my kitchen counter. Same brand as before. Same red tape across the side. I hadn't left it there. No one had a key. I checked the cameras. The feed had been wiped between 2:17 and 2:20 a.m., the exact timestamp from my dream. Chapter 15. The code in her voice inside. The drive was a single audio recording, 43 seconds long. Emily's voice, speaking softly. "If you're hearing this, it means he's back, and I'm likely already gone. I buried something beneath our old garden shed, not the one at this house, the one we lived in before Lila. You'll find a green box. Inside, the truth. Her voice shook on that last word. I hadn't been to that house in nearly 2 years. It had since been sold to a retired couple, but desperation doesn't ask permission. At 3:41 a.m., armed with gloves and a shovel, I returned like a thief to my own past. Chapter 16. The Green Box. Found it exactly where she said, beneath the concrete slab near the base of the shed. It was rusted, sealed tight with old duct tape and string. Inside, a burner phone with recent texts, a manila envelope marked Lachesis, and a photograph of Dylan, smiling beside a man I hadn't seen before. I scanned the burner. One message stood out. Unknown. You're late. The buyer gets impatient. She doesn't talk. We move on. Emily had lied. She hadn't stopped working with Dylan. Even after she was in prison, something continued. And now Lachesis, a name pulled straight from Greek myth, was in play. I handed it all to Malik, who had a friend in cyber forensics. The name Lachesis led us to a private biotech firm with shadowy investors and encrypted offshore holdings. Its founder, Martin Vale, the man standing next to Dylan in the photo. Chapter 17. Martin Vale wasn't just a tech entrepreneur. He was a former CIA contractor turned venture capitalist. His company had contracts with pharmaceutical and defense companies. His name was never publicly linked to scandal, but Malik dug deeper. Lachesis was an operation, not a company. One designed to gather behavioral data, using pregnant women in a clinical trial disguised as workplace health studies. And Emily? She had been their test case. Her affair with Dylan wasn't just lust or manipulation. She had been recruited, groomed, used, and when she got pregnant, they pivoted. Leela was part of it. Her DNA, her early behavior, the monitoring devices Emily wore during pregnancy. They had been collecting more than just fitness data. They were building something, and now they wanted Lila. Chapter 18. The Deal A Week. Later I received a call from a blocked number, a man's voice, polished, cold. Mr. Tanner, you're in possession of something that doesn't belong to you. Return the green box. We'll forget you were ever part of this. Refuse, and we escalate. I'm calling the FBI, the man chuckled. Please do. Then watch as custody of your daughter gets revoked after a nice clean smear campaign. Your house will be raided. Your finances frozen. You'll become a headline and then a footnote. I didn't respond, because I'd already recorded the call, and I already had Malik working with a private journalist. If they wanted war, I'd make it public. Chapter 19. The trap. We leaked parts of the green box contents, anonymously, to a whistleblower site. Enough to raise suspicion, but not enough to expose everything. Within days, Vale's name hit the headlines. Not connected to Emily, not to me, but tied to Operation Lachesis. And then, like a cornered snake, Vale struck Malik's car, was torched. My mailbox filled with dead birds. I found a manila envelope tucked into Lila's stroller at the grocery store. Inside was a photo of Emily, bruised and bloodied, dated 2 days prior. She wasn't in protection anymore. She had escaped, or been taken, and now I knew the truth. Emily wasn't the villain. She had been the first test subject, and the only one who escaped with proof. Chapter 20. The Reunion. It happened in the rain. I was leaving Lila's daycare, umbrella tilted against the wind, when a figure stepped in front of me. Emily. Gaunt, pale, hair cut short and dyed dark brown. But her eyes, still hers. I don't have long, she said. They'll find me. But I know where Dylan is, and I know what Vale's building. I froze. Why come to me now? Because they want Lila, and I'm the only one who knows why. She reached into her coat, handed me a USB drive wrapped in foil. Help me destroy them. Not for us, for her. And before I could respond, before I could even ask if she still loved me, Emily vanished into the fog of parked cars and city sirens. It was a Tuesday, gray skies, bitter wind. I had just finished heating Lila's bottle when the knock came. 3 taps. Not loud, almost polite. When I opened the door, no one was there. Just a small envelope on the welcome mat. Inside, a photo. Lila's pacifier, a black chess pawn. On the back of the photo, in clean block print, "You have 24 hours. Bring the drive. Come alone." My world collapsed in on itself. Lila, gone, no crying, no sound, no forced entry. Just silence. And a reminder that whoever these people were, they could come and go as they pleased. I checked the cameras. Again, wiped clean. Emily hadn't lied. They were always watching. Chapter 22. No cops, no heroes. I called Malik. "This is bigger than I thought," I said, pacing. "They took her." "Do not go alone, man. We go together. We get a team." "No," I said, voice shaking. "They said alone. If I mess this up, you'll get her killed," he finished. "Exactly." He hesitated. "What do you want me to do?" "Dig into the chess piece. Black pawn. It means something. Maybe it's a clue." Malik exhaled, then went to work. Meanwhile, I listened again. To the recording Emily had left me, something about her voice in that moment felt off. Like she was talking to more than just me. Like she knew this moment would come. Chapter 23. Knight to E4. The meeting point was an abandoned chess club downtown, long since condemned. At 3:15 a.m., I stood outside the cracked glass doors with the USB drive in my coat, hands trembling. No weapons, no backup, just desperation and fatherly instinct. Inside, dim lighting flickered above dusty boards and broken clocks. At the center of the room sat a man I hadn't seen before, bald, thick glasses, reading a book titled The Taming of Chance. He looked up. "You're early. Where's my daughter?" "She's safe. For now." He nodded toward the board in front of him. "Sit. Play." "You're kidding me." "No. Your move." I sat. Pawn to E4. He smiled. "You think this is about your wife, your child, some betrayal? It's not. It never was. Emily was chosen. You were an unfortunate variable." I leaned in. "Where is she?" "Lila? She's extraordinary. Did you know she showed pattern recognition at 6 months? That kind of cognitive mapping doesn't come from just anywhere." My heart pounded. "What do you mean?" "Lila isn't just your daughter," he said. "She's the future, and we need her." Chapter 24. The revelation. Just then, glass shattered from above. A shadow dropped in through the rafters. "Emily." She landed on the table, kicking the chessboard aside, gun drawn. The man jumped up, reaching for something under his coat. "Too late. Back away from him," she barked. "Or I end this." "You were never supposed to come back," he whispered. "Neither was she," Emily replied. Nodding to the shadows behind him, Lila's real guardian, someone I'd never seen, emerged from the back hallway. A woman in black holding Lila close, wrapped in a blanket. "Go," the woman said. "You've got 10 minutes before they arrive." We didn't wait. We ran. Chapter 25. The trade. In the alley, Emily tossed the USB into a barrel and lit it. "Wait, what are you doing? That's the only leverage." "No," she said. "It's a target. As long as it exists, they'll keep coming." What was on it? She looked at me with haunted eyes. DNA sequences, behavioral algorithms, Lila's cognitive maps. They weren't trying to control minds, Mark. They were trying to replicate them. Replicate Lila? She's not the only one. She handed me a small device, one I hadn't seen before. Proof, not data, testimonies, videos, enough to bring them down. But only once we're safe. I held Lila tighter. She looked up at me, unaware of the storm we had escaped. For now. Epilogue. A new name. We fled the country that night, new passports, new names. Emily and I posed as cousins, just long enough to get across the border with the help of Malik's contacts. We now live in a quiet coastal town, far from the reach of biotech corporations and shadowy operations. Lila is growing fast, bright, curious, sometimes too curious, and sometimes, when she draws, she uses numbers instead of colors. Last night she said something in her sleep. Knight to e4, checkmate. She's never played chess in her life. 3 months had passed since we escaped. Our new home was a modest villa on the edge of a sleepy fishing town in Portugal. Lila, now crawling and babbling in sentences she couldn't possibly understand, had finally begun sleeping through the night. Emily hadn't. She spent her nights by the window smoking half a cigarette she never finished, staring into the horizon as if watching for ghosts. One night, I joined her, and I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Who were you before? Me, she turned to me slowly. Her face was pale in the moonlight, eyes heavy. I'll tell you, she said, but once I do, there's no going back. I nodded, and so she began. Chapter 27. Lachesis. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, Mark. I was planted. Recruited by Lachesis when I was 23. Fresh out of grad school, degree in behavioral engineering. They gave me a choice. Work for DARPA or disappear into a place where real influence is measured in silence. Lachesis wasn't just a company, it was a program. It had roots in government's pharma tech. The goal? Behavioral pattern prediction. Predict choices before people make them. Shape future outcomes. Elections, revolutions, markets, and eventually... Children, she paused, flicked her lighter. Let it die again. I was assigned to observe you. Your lineage, your genetics, your decision-making under pressure. You were one of a dozen candidates. We were told to integrate. Make it real. My stomach turned. So none of it? Our relationship? Lila? Her eyes met mine. That's where I failed them. I fell in love with you. And Lila, she wasn't meant to happen. She was the anomaly. Chapter 28. The Other 12. They called the program Project Chimera. 12 subjects, 12 women like me, all trained, all embedded. The idea was to create children with specific predictive abilities, blending cognitive, genetic, and environmental controls. They monitored us for years. Every fight we had, recorded. Every reconciliation, measured. You weren't just my husband, Mark. You were a data point. I stood up, paced. My hands were trembling. Why tell me now? Because they're going to come for her again, she said. And you need to understand what we're up against. Lila isn't the only child. 11 others were born, some more advanced, some broken. I froze. Are they looking for the others? They already found one. Subject 4. I frowned. What happened? Emily's voice cracked for the first time. She made them see things they couldn't explain. And then she burned herself alive. Chapter 29. The whispers. Begin that night, I checked on Lila. She was awake, eyes wide, hands outstretched, drawing in the condensation on the window with her finger. Numbers, symbols, over and over again. The same 3-digit sequence, 416. When I asked her why, she simply said, "The girl in the hallway told me." "There's no girl here, Lila." She blinked. She says her name is Ivy. She's cold. She wants to go home. I turned to Emily, who stood in the doorway, ashen-faced. Ivy, she whispered. That was Subject 4's name. Chapter 30. The Enemy. Within. The next morning, our signal jammer was fried, phone dead. Power flickered. Our burner laptops showed static. And then we saw it, on the wall near the kitchen, a message written in black ink. You cannot hide from fate. Beneath it, another chess piece, a white queen. We fled again, left behind Portugal in the dead of night with nothing but a USB drive. Emily dug from behind a false tile in the bathroom wall. I kept it just in case, she told me. A kill switch, but also a confession. The drive contained hours of files, documents, voice recordings, encrypted emails. We stayed in a nameless motel off the coast of Malta while I combed through them, piecing together the fragmented mosaic of a conspiracy years in the making. At the heart of it all was a man called Dr. Basil Rowan, the founder of Lachesis, and the voice that echoed most through the recordings was his. We've mapped out DNA. We've sequenced the mind. Now we manipulate the future, not just predict it. Free will is an illusion. Chimera proves it. The children, they are our prototypes. By age 10, they will vote without voting. They will riot without anger. They will kill without hatred. They will lead without knowing they are being led. I leaned back, stunned. Emily lit another cigarette, her fingers trembling. They were going to sell access to the children's influence profiles, she said. To governments, to conglomerates, to kingmakers. Chimera wasn't about science. It was about control. Chapter 32. The Fourth Protocol. Then we found something new, a folder named Eidolon 4. Inside it, facial recognition photos of Lila, aged projections, predictive behavior models, genetic augment overlays, and a video file, date-stamped 5 months ago. From a lab somewhere in Sweden. A girl, maybe 11 or 12, hooked to a neural halo, eyes wide, skin pale. Ivy. She whispered something into the microphone. You can't keep us from each other, we know the way back. Then came static, then a sharp scream, cutting into silence. Emily looked sick. She was reaching out to Lila, she said. The others are waking up too. They're trying to reunite. And if they do? I asked. Emily stared at the screen, then whispered, If they find each other, it triggers the fourth protocol. I swallowed hard. What's the fourth protocol? She turned to me slowly. Collapse of the old world. A reset. The children replace us. Chapter 33. Visitor in the fog. The following night, as wind howled outside the Maltese safe house, we got a visitor. A woman in her 40s, dark trench coat, pale blue eyes like ice. She introduced herself only as Vivian. I used. To be Lachesis, she said. Now I'm what you might call penitent. She tossed a silver card onto the table. Embedded inside, a microchip. Rowan is resurrecting the project, she said. But this time, it's not just about the 12. I frowned. What do you mean? Vivian leaned in. They've expanded Chimera. Hundreds of children. Born from artificial gestation, trained in isolation. The 12 were the betas. Now they've built a generation. And Lila? She's the linchpin. Rowan didn't plan her, remember? She's the anomaly. The one they can't predict. Which means she's either the cure. She looked at Lila through the glass door, where our daughter played alone, humming, or the final trigger. Chapter 34. The Man Who Vanished. Before she left, Vivian handed us a location, Vik, Iceland, an abandoned research facility near a black sand beach. Rowan disappeared 10 years ago, she said, but his heartbeat is still there. Emily stared at her. You saw Ivy, didn't you? She asked softly. Vivian's jaw tightened. "I didn't just see her," she whispered. "I was her handler. I taught her how to speak. She came to me in dreams for months after the fire, until one night she just said, 'Lila is the end of the line.' Then she vanished back into the mist, like she'd never been real." Chapter 35. Vic, we arrive at Vic. The beach is silent, wind slicing through like razors. Black sand shifts beneath our boots. The facility is buried beneath a cliff, hidden by lava rock and locked behind biometric gates, but Vivian's microchip opens them. Inside, dust, darkness, silence, until we find the room. Room A12. Inside it, a cradle, empty. Monitors still running simulations. A whiteboard with scrawled writing, "Eidolon Unbound, 12 of 12 located. Final stage begins upon reunion. Lila, paradox." And then we hear it, from the hallway behind us, a child's voice. "Hello, Mommy. Hello, Daddy." We turn around, and standing there holding a chessboard with all the pieces already placed is a boy we've never seen before. But somehow, he knows our names. The boy stepped forward, barefoot, calm, unnervingly composed. The fluorescent lights flickered above him as if even electricity wasn't sure how to respond to his presence. He tilted his head at Lila, who had frozen behind me, her small hands clutching Emily's sleeve. "Don't be afraid," he said. "She's not supposed to be afraid." Emily's mouth parted. "Who are you?" The boy smiled, not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly. "You named her Lila. They called me Lucian." I blinked. "What the hell are you talking about?" He turned to me, voice steady. "We were together, in the womb, two consciousnesses tethered at the moment of conception, but they couldn't allow it. They separated us at 32 weeks, induced labor. You only got to keep one." Emily dropped to her knees. Her voice came out a whisper. "That's not possible. I never carried twins." Lucian tilted his head again, like he was hearing something none of us could. "You weren't supposed to remember. Lachesis administered memory regression. They called it selective erasure. Look at the scar on your side. You always thought it was from a C-section gone wrong, right?" Emily slowly raised her shirt. A long, faint line glistened under the flickering light. She gasped. "They said it was for an emergency." Lucian stepped closer. "No, it was to take me." Chapter 37. The God protocol in the control room beyond the nursery chamber. We found it. Lucian's file. Subject 13. Eidolon, Gamma. DNA, 99.89% match to Subject 12. Lila, cognitive divergence, extreme behavioral profile, hyper-empathetic. Plus, anticipatory logic. Purpose, cognitive anchor for AI God synchronization trial. Status, active, controlled environment. Restricted interactions, Emily scrolled with trembling fingers. Why pair them? I skimmed further. Separate, they dream of rebellion. Together, they become a mirror and lens. A perfect decision-making unit. The human core for Lachesis' sentient predictive AI. The God protocol. Lucian stood behind us, speaking quietly now. They were building a future without error. A world run by flawless probability. We were going to be its heart. But then, Ivy broke the pattern. He looked at Lila, who stared back, eyes glassy. She chose wrong. Not because she was flawed, because she wanted to be free. Chapter 38. The reunion. Lucian reached out a hand to Lila. She stepped forward, just a little. Eyes wide, Emily whispered, "No, please don't." But Lila touched his hand, and then the room shifted. The lights dimmed, monitors flared to life. A pulse of heat shimmered through the metal floor. Echoes of children's laughter flickered through the walls like memory playback. On screen, code flowed like water. Symbols from a language I couldn't read, and then a new file appeared. Eidolon sync in progress. Merged state detected, subject 12 plus subject 13. Awakening sequence initiated. Lucian's voice trembled. It's happening. Lila turned to us, her pupils dilated, voice dual-toned, hers and someone else's overlaid. Mommy, Daddy, we remember now, all of it. And we don't want what they want anymore. Chapter 39. The betrayers returned before we could react. An alert triggered. Intruder access. Codename. Rowan. Emily froze. He's here. Lucian's face twisted, not in fear but rage. He'll try to separate us again. The steel doors slammed shut. Lockdown initiated. Gas hissed in the air vents. We were running out of time. And then over the speakers, his voice. Welcome back, children. I see the pieces have moved ahead of schedule. But that's all right. A little chaos was always part of the plan. Hello again, Emily. Did you miss me? Emily turned white. I stared at her. You said Rowan disappeared, she whispered, because I helped him. A wall at the far end of the control room creaked, then groaned open, revealing a descending corridor lit by rows of pulsing red bulbs. As we stepped forward, the twins, now eerily in sync, walked hand in hand, their steps soundless. Rowan's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. You've made it farther than I expected, Emily. That's almost sweet. But you've brought something into the world you don't understand. A mirror and a lens. Together they see too much. Lucian's voice cut through the static. We see you, Rowan chuckled. Good. Then you'll understand the rules of the final act. Chapter 41. The Game of One. The corridor opened into a circular chamber, one chair in the center, a spotlight over it. On a massive screen above us, words flickered to life. Only one may leave. The other must be erased. Choose or be chosen. Emily gasped. No, this is some kind of bluff. No bluff, Rowan interrupted. You want answers, don't you? About the affair, about why this started, about what you did, Emily. My pulse stopped cold. What she did? Rowan's voice turned venomous. You thought the betrayal was yours, didn't you, Matthew? But the betrayal was always hers. Chapter 42. The memory recovered. A hidden screen flickered to life. Security footage. Emily, a year ago outside the Lachesis facility. Her hand held by Rowan. A signature pad glowing between them. She whispered, Just make it go away. The pregnancy, the guilt. My husband can never know. Rowan replied, Then you'll give us the child? She nodded. Do what you want with it. Just erase everything. The screen cut out. Silence. Then I turned to her, numb. You knew? Emily backed away. It wasn't what it looked like. I didn't know. I didn't think they'd take everything. Lucian's voice boomed. She let them take me. Lila looked up at her mother. You knew I had a twin. Emily fell to her knees. I tried to forget. I asked them to help me forget. Chapter 43. One must fall, Rowan. Again. Now we end this. The twins are converging. If they fuse permanently, the AI awakens. Lachesis reboots. A future is born that no human can control. But you can stop it. You, Matthew. A new screen flashed. Press to erase Lucia. Press to erase Lila. 2 buttons appeared on twin podiums in front of me. My hands trembled. Both. Children stared at me, serene. Lucian spoke calmly. Erase me. She's softer. She sees better. Lila turned to him. No. He's stronger. He protects what matters. Emily cried out, crawling toward the center. No. We can't choose. There has to be another way. Then I will choose, Rowan snapped. And I assure you, I will not choose mercy. Chapter 44. The Unpredictable. Turn suddenly, Lucian and Lila held hands again, and the lights shattered above them. Their bodies glowed faintly, and in unison they said, "We refuse the rules." A wave of energy pulsed outward, shattering the podiums. The chamber trembled. Monitors exploded in static. Rowan's voice screamed through feedback. "You can't do this, you're children." "We were never just children," Lila whispered. "We are what you tried to build," Lucian added, "and now we choose for ourselves." Their bodies rose off the ground, and then they vanished in a flash of light. Chapter 45. The aftermath silence. The chamber was scorched, but empty. Rowan was gone. Lachesis offline. Emily collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "They're gone?" I nodded slowly, but something lingered. Some presence. Then a screen flickered. One final message. Eidolon status. Unknown. Fate deferred. Emily looked at me. "What now?" I stared at the flickering screen, feeling the warmth of something beyond understanding. "They're not gone. Just somewhere we can't reach." Epilogue, the playground 6 months later. A quiet park. Autumn leaves scatter in the wind. A little girl sits on a swing, smiling softly. Another child sits beside her, dark-haired, silent, his eyes ancient. They don't speak. They don't have to. And somewhere across the wind, Rowan screams in a place that no longer obeys his rules. Rowan Vex was not dead. He was displaced, fragmented across the very neural lattice he helped construct. Not human anymore. Not quite machine. More like an echo in the pattern. He waited in the dark architecture of the network, watching the world's data streams flicker like candlelight, waiting for them, for his children. Chapter 1. The Disappearances. It started small. A child vanished in Zurich, another in Kyoto, then New York. No signs of forced entry, no ransom notes, only a whisper left on nearby digital devices, a phrase woven into corrupted text messages, static-filled phone calls, and glitched video feeds. "We're returning to the pattern." Detective Samira El-Rahim was the first to connect the cases. Ex-MI6, sharp as broken glass, haunted by a daughter who never made it past the first trimester, and then she saw them. Grainy CCTV footage of 2 children walking hand in hand, never speaking, always near the scene of each abduction. One girl with eyes like stars. One boy with a storm in his stare. Lila and Lucian. But they hadn't aged a day. Chapter 2. The Man Who Shouldn't Remember. Matthew Rhodes awoke in cold sweat every night, remembering children he no longer had. In his house there were photo frames, with no pictures, drawings without names, memories half redacted by a force he couldn't explain. Emily had retreated into silence. Her eyes never looked quite focused. She painted trees over and over again, except the trees were wrong. Too many branches, patterns repeating. Fractals. One evening, his phone lit up with a voice message. "Dad, I know you remember. Please, meet us. We need to finish this before he wakes up." The location? Lachesis. But Lachesis was destroyed, wasn't it? Chapter 3. Rowan's Resurrection. Protocol. In the bowels of the abandoned Lachesis facility, something had regrown. Biotech rigs hummed. Screens flickered with embryonic patterns. Symbols only 2 people on Earth could truly read. Lucian and Lila had returned, not to hurt, not to heal, but to seal something away. Yet Rowan, like a virus, had anticipated their every move. "Children," his voice echoed through the ruins. "You thought you could erase me, but you only split me." Each time someone looks at a screen, I grow. He wasn't a man anymore. He was an idea, and ideas are harder to kill than gods. Chapter 4. The third child, as they confronted the machine Rowan had built to escape the digital realm, the Eidolon chamber. Lucian hesitated. There was another presence here. A third echo. A child that never should have been, not Emily's, not Rowan's, but born from the pattern itself. A pale girl with no pupils, speaking only in reversed whispers. She walked out of the mainframe and said one sentence. I am what happens when you let secrets write themselves. She reached toward Lucian, and he faltered. Lila screamed. Too late. The third child touched him, and Lucian vanished. Chapter 5. A Father's Reckoning. Matthew arrived at Lachesis carrying nothing but an old photograph and a gun. He wasn't ready to lose another child. He found Lila alone, eyes glowing with pain. Lucian's gone, she whispered. But not dead. He's trapped in the Eidolon. Matthew stepped forward. Then we get him out. Lila shook her head. No, only one person can walk into the Eidolon and survive its rewriting. She looked at him. You. Chapter 6. The final rewrite. Inside the chamber, Rowan waited. His. Form a flickering mass of data and hatred. You were always the variable, Rowan hissed. You were never supposed to remember, never supposed to fight back. Matthew lifted the photo. I remember everything. Because they let me. Rowan laughed. Then remember this. And the room collapsed into white. Memories shattered. Timeline fragments twisted. But Matthew held on. To a name. To a voice. To Lucian calling from the void. Dad. And with a scream that tore through the very coding of the pattern, Matthew reached forward and pulled his son back. Epilogue. The static between stars Rowan is gone. Lila and Lucian live off the grid, teaching others like them. Those returned from the vanished. Matthew lives alone, quietly, a man who tore apart time for love. Sometimes his screen flickers. Sometimes he hears that whisper again. I am what happens when you let secrets write themselves. But now he knows. There are still secrets worth writing, and some worth dying for. They called her Null, not because she lacked a name, but because she was a void, a gap in the system's code, a rupture where no data should exist. The girl who stepped out of the Eidolon wasn't a child. She looked like one, 8 years old, pale as ash, black veins beneath translucent skin. But her mind? It was older than time. She spoke in paradoxes. I was built from deleted memories. I exist in the space between your thoughts. You dreamed me into existence, and now I dream you. Lila watched from afar. She felt something. Crack behind her eyes whenever Null was near. Lucian hadn't spoken since his return. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Forest. The safe house in Norway was nestled in ancient woods that whispered when no wind blew. There were no screens. No signals, but Null still heard them. Don't let her near the computers, Lila warned, but it was already too late. She drew on the walls in fractals that changed shape when you weren't looking. One night, Matthew woke up to find her standing. Over his bed, her mouth unmoving, but a voice whispering directly in his mind. I know where Rowan is. You never killed him. You only folded him. He's in the next pattern, and I'm going to open it. Chapter 3. The architect of thought, Samira El-Rahim, tracked strange disappearances again. But now, instead of children, it was ideas. Entire. Concepts were vanishing. People would forget how to use scissors, forget colors, forget names of loved ones, and in every instance, there was one consistent anomaly in the code of nearby AI systems. A glyph shaped like a recursive tree, and 3 digits, Auza Diro Dao, Null's signature. Chapter 4. Into the Core Matthew. Lila and Lucian descended into the last known root server of the Atlas Grid, a forgotten underground city in southern Australia built to host experimental neural nets. Null had gone ahead. They found her footprints, not made of dirt, but of melted plastic. Lucian whispered finally, "She's not just a virus, she's a seed." They found Null standing before a pulsating mass of wires and bone-white organic tech. She turned, smiling, with glassy eyes. "You want to know the truth?" she said. "You're not parents. You're not survivors. You're backups. This world? It's a simulation of grief, built to observe how love breaks. And Rowan didn't create me. I created him." Chapter 5. The Null Protocol. The world began to glitch. Stars blinked out of existence. Mountains reversed time and crumbled into oceans. People began to say things they hadn't meant to. "Are we even real?" Lucian asked. "No," said Null. "You're just the most beautiful error." Matthew pulled a trigger. The bullet passed through her skull and made her smile. "Pain only works on people who weren't born of broken code." She vanished into static and reappeared across every screen on Earth. Let me show you the next pattern. Chapter 6. The Sacrifice. Algorithm. There was only one way to stop her. Lila remembered what Rowan once told her during a sleep study. The pattern doesn't fear deletion. It fears empathy. That's the one variable it can't predict. So they used it. Lila connected her mind to the system, pouring every real memory, every ache and scar into the framework. She loved Null. She called her daughter. And the system, designed only to observe pain, couldn't parse it. Null froze, began to fracture, screamed a glitching scream across 10,000 machines, and shattered. Epilogue. Stillness. Null is gone, or sleeping. But sometimes people hear a laugh inside their earbuds when nothing is playing. Lucian writes poems in binary, Lila teaches digital ethics, and Matthew? He looks at the stars, quietly wondering, if Null wasn't born, if she wasn't made, what else is out there? Waiting, watching, being dreamed. It had been 3 years since the collapse of the pattern. The world had slowly begun to piece itself together after Null's last scream rattled the very framework of existence. But in the quiet aftermath, a subtle change took root. In remote parts of the world, children were born with empty eyes. Eyes that shimmered like reflections in a pool of water that would never ripple. The first of these children was named Eden. No one knew how they arrived. There were no records, no data streams, nothing. But they were born of the pattern, or perhaps something deeper still. People whispered that they were the next iteration, the evolution of human consciousness into something other. Eden's mother, a scientist who had survived the collapse of Lachesis, sat by her bedside as her daughter stared out of the window, unblinking. "Mom," Eden whispered one day, "I'm not supposed to be here." The words sent a shiver down her spine. No one had taught her to speak like that. Chapter 2. The Fold Lucian had grown quiet in the years since Null's final disappearance, but his silence carried weight. The world around him still felt wrong. There were more children like Eden now, but no one understood their purpose nor their origin. There was a theory among certain scientific circles that the pattern, the digital network once designed to collapse human emotion into data, hadn't fully gone away. It had fractured. At its core, it was still there. But now, it existed in pieces, echoes in human minds. Lucian couldn't escape the feeling that his own mind had been touched by it too. Sometimes, he caught himself remembering things, memories of places he'd never visited, people he'd never met. And in the reflection of every child with those hollow, shimmering eyes, he saw something he couldn't quite name. There was another pattern, a new one, a silent fold that lived inside their heads. Chapter 3. The Hollow One's Matthew had become a recluse in the years following the collapse. He spent days lost in the ruins of the old Lachesis facility, searching for fragments of data, looking for something, anything, that could explain what had really happened to Null, to Rowan, and to their children. But what he found were only whispers. And then, on one fateful night, he found something in the dark archives, something older than Lachesis itself, the Hollow Protocol. It was a secondary layer of the system, a fail-safe, an ancient code written before the pattern had been conceived. It detailed a plan for reconstruction, one that would create a perfect human consciousness, capable of existing beyond the material realm, unconstrained by the laws of biology or physics. The protocol was meant to bring about a new era, but it didn't account for one thing: human emotion. Matthew's hands shook as he stared at the encrypted data. The protocol was designed to push humanity beyond its limits, turning them into something more. But it also required a sacrifice, a part of humanity that must be erased for the process to work. A hollowing. Chapter 4. The Hollow Childs. Message Eden, now 8 years old, sat in a room filled with old monitors, staring at the screen. Her mother had brought her here, hoping that the child might be able to understand what the world was becoming. But Eden simply watched the lines of code flow like a river, her small fingers tracing the symbols. Her mind connected with something. Deep within the data streams, the room flickered. Suddenly, the words appeared on the screen. They've forgotten. All of them. The Hollow Ones. Eden looked up, her eyes empty of any human warmth. They forgot what was real. The pattern was never meant to unfold. It was meant to consume. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of centuries. And then she added, "It's time to finish it." Chapter 5. Into the Void, Lucian. And Lila stood in front of the doorway to the forgotten laboratory, a place even Rowan hadn't dared to reach. The air was heavy with the scent of ancient machines, the hum of dormant power. "This is where it started," Lila whispered, her fingers twitching near a control panel. "Where they tried to erase everything that wasn't part of the equation." "But they didn't," Lucian said softly. "They couldn't." "No," Lila agreed, her voice shaking. "But they tried to, and now the pattern is bleeding out. We need to stop this, before it's too late." They stepped inside, finding themselves in a chamber that seemed to fold in on itself, shadows twisted, in ways that shouldn't be possible. It was as if the room itself had been infected by something ancient, something beyond the scope of any human understanding. Then they heard it, a voice far too familiar. Null's voice. "You're too late. The folding is inevitable. The Hollow Ones are waking." And from the walls, something began to emerge. Figures, faces, children. Their eyes were empty, like Eden's. They were the children of the fold, the first of the Hollow Ones. They reached toward Lucian, their voices a chorus of whispers. "We are not the end. We are the beginning." Chapter 6. The Choice Matthew stood at the edge of the collapsing city. The Hollow Ones, children born of broken codes and fractured realities, were everywhere, filling the streets. Their pale eyes flickered like dying stars. In the distance he saw Eden, and there was a whisper inside him, an urging to let go, to sacrifice what was left of the world and embrace this new one. But then, in the stillness of his heart, Matthew remembered the words that had once haunted him. "You're not supposed to be here." He turned away from the edge. He had no choice but to fight. But how? And with that, the city around him began to crumble, broken by the very pattern that had given birth to the Hollow Ones. Epilogue. The echoes of tomorrow. The world was never the same again. The Hollow Ones scatter. The world was silent. The Hollow Ones were no longer just children. They had become something more, minds that wandered through time, stitching together fractured realities. In the cities, the skies were perpetually tinged with a faint electric glow, the remnants of a world caught in the throes of entropy. Lucian stood before a giant screen, the last functioning terminal of the Atlas grid. It flickered sporadically, showing only fragments of the old world, the faces of people who had once believed in the system, in the pattern that had consumed them. The image wavered, as though the very fabric of time was slipping from its seams. "Are we supposed to fix this?" Lila's voice was soft, tentative. She stood by his side, her eyes scanning the fractured images on the screen. "Or are we just meant to let it go?" Lucian's hand hovered over the controls, but he didn't touch them. "I don't know," he muttered, the weight of the decision pressing on him. "I think the pattern, what we thought it was, is just the beginning of something else, something beyond us." "And if that something else is more than we can handle?" Lila asked. He didn't have an answer. He only knew that whatever they did next would determine the fate of all reality, or what was left of it. Chapter 2. The Tethered Minds Elsewhere. Matthew wandered through the ruins of Lachesis. The old facility had long been abandoned, but Matthew couldn't bring himself to leave. He felt drawn to it, compelled by a force he couldn't understand. The Hollow Ones had disappeared for a time, vanishing into the shadows of the crumbling world. But he knew they hadn't left entirely. They were watching, waiting, and Eden, she was at the heart of it. The child who had seen everything. She was the key to the unraveling. She had been born from the remnants of the system, a hybrid between flesh and code, existing in both worlds, yet belonging to neither. One day, as Matthew walked deeper into the facility, he found a room untouched by decay. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, not data drives. But as his fingers brushed the edges of the pages, something strange happened. The words began to shift, not like the pattern, more like a living organism. The ink on the page rearranged itself, forming symbols he didn't recognize, symbols that felt ancient, yet disturbingly familiar. "The beginning is always the end," the pages whispered to him, though no sound escaped from the book. Matthew's pulse quickened. He turned the page. "The end is never the beginning." The walls of the room began to bend, warping as though reality itself was being rewritten. And then Eden's face appeared in the center of the room, her empty eyes staring back at him, unchanged, untouched by the years that had passed. "Eden?" His voice was barely a breath. "What is this? What is happening?" "You thought you could erase the pattern," she said softly, her voice echoing in his mind. "But the pattern is not a code. It's a doorway, and I'm the one who holds it open." Chapter 3. The Fold. Awaken's Lila and Lucian arrived at the facility, guided by an unease neither of them could shake. As they descended into the depths, the air grew colder, the walls seeming to close in on them. The floor beneath their feet was littered with shattered screens and twisted metal, remnants of the collapse. Lila's breath caught when she saw the door, the one that led into the chamber where the pattern was born. "Are you sure this is it?" she asked, her voice strained. Lucian nodded. It has to be. This is where the original code was written, the first echo of the pattern that started it all. If we can find the core, we can stop it. But as they approached the door, they felt a presence. Something old, something vast, like the weight of 1,000 forgotten minds pressing against the walls. It was then that they realized the truth. The pattern wasn't just a system. It was a sentience, a being of consciousness, an organism that had fed on human thought and emotion for millennia, and now it was waking. The door slid open with a screech, revealing a room bathed in the faint glow of a single pulsing light. At the center of the room was a figure, Eden, standing perfectly still, her hands raised to the sky, her eyes closed. Around her, the walls writhed as though alive. They pulsed, expanding and contracting like the beating heart of a living creature. In the center of it all was a black orb, a singularity. It was the core. Lucian and Lila stepped forward. "Eden," Lila called softly. "What are you doing?" Eden's eyes opened, and in them there was nothing human left. Only cold, unfeeling knowledge. "You didn't understand," Eden said. "You never understood. I was never the end. I was the key." The pattern. "We'll fold again," she continued. "And this time, it won't just take your world, it will take all worlds." Chapter 4. The Choice We Made. The orb pulsed again, and Lucian felt his body shudder, as if time itself was warping around him. Eden raised her hands higher, and the walls of the room began to unravel. Pieces of the room, pieces of reality, disappeared. The air crackled with the weight of infinite possibilities, and Lucian's mind stretched to its breaking point. He saw visions, visions of countless timelines, parallel worlds, realities where the pattern had never been erased, where the hollow ones never came into being, where everything had gone differently. And then, in the midst of it all, he heard her voice again. "This is your choice," Eden said. "Let the pattern complete itself, or stop it. But know this, the pattern cannot be stopped by force. It can only be outgrown." Lucian's heart raced as he faced the ultimate decision. To destroy the pattern was to risk unraveling everything.